Hello and welcome to another class in Stefan's classroom. My name is Stefan Eriksson. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to estimate on subsamples. Because despite you sometimes having a large, nice data set that you spend a lot of time collecting, you may only need to estimate on certain subsamples of it. So to do this example today, we're going to be using the SP500 dataset. So let's run this first and take a look at what we are actually dealing with. So opening here, you see date, open, high, low, close, volume, and change. I'll just be using the first two for today. And what you will quickly notice is that the date variable has holes because there's weekends, right? Because the stock market is not opening weekends. That means actually we should implement a business calendar, but for the purpose of illustration, we're not going to be doing so. So you may want to see that there is some holes there when I'm going to TS-set my date. So we can TS-set date because we need some time series functions. So we're going to say TS-set and daily. So if I run this, you're going to be indeed see that, hey, there's gaps. But don't worry, for this example, it is just fine. Because what we're just trying to do here, we're going to do many different regressions to obtain exactly the same result. And that's what I think is super cool. So another step of preparation is that we need to generate the logarithm of the opening price. I would like to use that one instead. You don't have to if you just really want to run the same things, but I prefer to do so. So of course, we just lopen, which is going to call lopen. Aha. And of course, last thing, we can use a time variable for a counter, which is generated by _n. Again, all these small things are covered in other videos, my tips and tricks videos and so forth. So you can go check those out if you want to learn a little more about why I do the things I do here. So now we should have everything open and ready to be able to regress a nice little AR1 model. Again, something I dealt with earlier. So we can regress lopen on lopen as well. That should be able to just generate a normal regression. However, we want to do it on a subsample. So the first way we're going to do it is with if condition or if statement. So let's say we want to use it only for after the first 100 observations. So time has to be larger than 100. That's going to be our reference point for this remainder of the video. So running here, we see 113 observations, 0.97. That is the key for all the regressions that we're going to be doing. I'll do something I think is a little smart, and I'm going to copy the first part here because that's what I'm going to be needing for all the ways to come. You could of course also keep the observations. So we could say keep if time is larger than 99, then run the regression without the if statement because now we've simply just removed all the observations. However, this is very dangerous because you cannot come back from once you have kept or removed part of the data. The way to get around this is via preserve before it and restore after it, because then it resets to what it was before the preserve after you hit the restore. We have another video on that, of course. Running this again, we see exactly the same regression once more. So that's okay. All good so far. So that's 2 down, and I think we're going to go up to all the way up until 7, but count along with me as we go. So for time number 3, we can of course take the same stem again. So what are we going to do now? We're going to use in instead. So we can say here we're going to do it in 101 up until 248. You can check how many observations you have in a quick way just by writing count. There's probably another way to do it, but I like to just write count. So I know that, okay, I want to run from 101 up until 248. Running this should reproduce the same regression as before. 113, 0.97. Nice. So far, so good. We can, of course, go back and use a version of if. And this time, we're going to be using one of Stata's date functions, TD. What essentially it does is, it takes these dates that you see here, all these dates here, and converts them into numbers. Because without going into too much detail about Stata's date format, because I find it still very tricky to work with, every single date in Stata has an underlying number. So it just tracks with a number. And one way to call out this number is by using the toDate function. So that's the TD function. So we can say if date is larger than or equal to, and then we can simply use TD and convert your date to a certain number. I cheated a little bit, so I already know that 100 days in is 25th of May 2001 compared to the dataset because we're dealing with 2001 data. So by running this here, I should, fingers crossed, be able to rerun the same regression as I did before. Indeed, 113, 0.97. So far, so good. Now this is looking quite fine. So now we can also, of course, also use another function which is known as inrange. We indeed need the same stem as before. And then we can say if something is in range. So in range is basically a function that says, okay, based on what do we want to range count on or set as the range, we're going to use date, because that's our date variable. and then you specify a beginning and an end. So what we do here, we use the td function inside. So again, from the 25th of May, 2001, then comma, to date, up until the end of the data set, which happens to be 31st of December, 2001. If I've typed this correctly, it should just run and reproduce exactly the same regression as before. 113, 097, I'm very happy. So far, so good. We can also do this in a slightly different way. So of course we can use if, and again, inrange. And then instead of using the date here, you can also just use DOFD up front. So we can actually even cheat even more and copy the whole thing. And just in front of this date variable, you could also use the DOFD around it and encapsulate this and do the same thing. So you can also look up with the help function what DOFD does, but again, we're just converting back to numbers and again, reproducing exactly the same way. So that's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ways. And I got one more to go. And yes, of course, 7 ways. There's plenty more out there. I'm pretty sure about that. So another way to do it is a little more workaround, but it also reveals the numbers behind it. By doing so, you can force your date variable to be a string, because when you transform into a string, you get the underlying number. It's a way I found just by, looking a little at the data and trying a little out, and it's not a very good way, but what it does for you, it does make you understand what the numbers behind each of the dates. Because Stata's base date is somewhere in the 1960s, you can always look that up. So of course, we can generate a new date2 variable here, which should be the number version of the dates in a string. So of course, by doing this, I now have a string variable of date. We can open, go to the end, or it's actually here. You see what the number corresponds to each of the dates here. That's super nice. So now we can actually use this number to call instead. And that's a nice little way of doing it. So we're going to be doing the inrange version of this one again. You can also try different versions again. So rather now, we can of course just, instead of using TD and these dates here, we can use these numbers that we have just made appear. And of course, we have to remember, well, we could use date 2, but we shouldn't because it only needs numerical. But now we know what the underlying number is because of the toDate function. So what we can do say here, we know that the first one is 15120. We can of course look it up, but I wrote it on my other screen over here for cheating. And of course we can do 15340 because those are the two numbers that corresponds indeed to our first day and our last day in our little subsample estimation here. So if everything went well, which I hope, we should be able to replicate exactly the same again. And what do you know? 113, 097, and we've done it in 7 different ways. So depending on the situation, other situations may call for different ways to do it, but this here at least gives you some tools to get started with how should you do with subsamples. And keep in mind, some may be better in other cases, but they can almost always all produce exactly the same underlying, same subsample regression. And that is all I have for you today, folks. So I hope you enjoyed today's class in Stefan's Classroom, and I hope to see you back for another class in Stefan's Classroom. Bye-bye.